Hello guys and gals, and welcome! So I have something special today. I know I saw that a couple other content creators have done this. I was a little hesitant, honestly, to do it. And the reason why I was kind of hesitant is because, well, number one, well, let me tell you what I'm doing first. I'm going to be going over the unique items today that were leaked from Diablo IV Beta, and the reason why I was kind of hesitant of doing it is because, well, number one, they could all change before launch. I mean, we don't necessarily know if any of these are going to stay the way they were. I have confirmation from some people who participated in the closed beta, not the early access, not the open, but the closed beta, and they said some of the unique items have changed already between the closed beta and the early access. So we may see considerable changes to these uniques as time goes on. Also, it's obviously a pretty big spoiler, so if you don't want to see the uniques, if you don't want to go over them and take a look at them one by one, that's what we're going to be doing today, and we're going to have some fun looking at the potential of these items. So without further ado, I'm going to bring it up on the screen, and if you don't want to look at it, then turn the video off. Alright, so here we go. We've got a big listing. I mean, this is a lot of items, so it's going to take us quite a while to go over. The first item on the list is the Waxing Gibbous. This one is gain the stealth for 2 seconds when killing enemies with Shred. So this seems to be very specifically pointed at the Werewolf Druid, I'm pretty sure. Shred was the Werewolf Druid skill. Breaking stealth with an attack grants ambush, which guarantees critical strikes for 1 to 2.5 seconds. So giving stealth to the Werewolf Druid. And the flavor text says, the nights preceding the full moon are sometimes far more dangerous than the event itself. The frenzy has begun to rise, yet the night is just dark enough to obscure a hunter from their prey's sight. Then we have the Butcher's Cleaver, which I had I found myself in the beta. It was lucky hit. When you critically strike an enemy, you have up to a 100% chance to fear and slow them by 40 to 75% for 4 seconds. Now, of course, it is a 100% chance every single time you crit, but it then has to roll your lucky hit chance, whatever that is. You may have 50% lucky hit chance or 100% lucky hit chance, depending on how you have your character built. So it's going to roll your lucky hit chance first. So every time you crit, it's going to roll your lucky hit chance. If the lucky hit chance succeeds, you get a 100% chance to fear and slow, which could be particularly useful for a character who's trying to get that extra crowd control damage. As you can see, there's tons of crowd control damage on many items. And it could honestly be a very effective way to get your crowd control damage. I also noticed in my time using it, ooh, my throat. I also noticed in my time using it that it helps to stagger bosses tremendously, because every single hit you make, pretty much, if you have a crit build, is going to apply stagger to them, and they get staggered really fast. Next on the list is Condemnation. This is a dagger. Your core skills deal 20 to 40% increased damage while spending 3 combo points. So combo points is specifically for the rogue. Your basic skills using this weapon have a 30% chance to generate 3 combo points. So very interesting. You've got a dagger which will allow you to hit your 3 combo points much easier, and then also gives you a bonus damage for having those combo points, which is pretty good. I've never seen such ruthless butchery. He deserves to be shipped off to die in the swamps with the rest of the godless murderers. Witness to the murder of Sergeant Walcott. Then we have Asheara's Khanjar. Hits with this weapon increase your attack speed by 4 to 6 1% plus for 4 seconds. A little bit difficult to understand how that is. For up to 0.04 to 0.06 times 5 plus 1%. So basically just a nice attack speed bonus when you're using this particular weapon for up to 4 seconds, up to a certain percentage of attack speed, which it doesn't really quite. I'd have to actually run that math and see what the hell it comes out to. Somebody wants to do it in the comments, feel free. But I mean, it seems pretty clear that this is an attack speed item. Definitely makes you attack a hell of a lot faster for essentially everything. There are some items like this in the game that are similar, but they're usually just for basic skills or just for core skills or so forth and so on. This one seems to be for everything, which is nice. Then we have what almost looks like a pickaxe because it's got two things on the other side, but it says it's a scythe here. It's called the Black River. Corpse explosion consumes up to 4 additional corpses around the initial corpse, dealing float range with interval shared random float. Not really sure what the hell that is. Increased damage with a larger radius per additional corpse. So, seems pretty clear what this one does is it allows you to consume more corpses to have a larger radius on your corpse explosion and have the corpse explosion deal increased damage. So, if you have like a ton of corpses, then obviously you're going to get the ability to just like hit everything on the screen pretty much for consuming up to 4 additional corpses. And I'm assuming that maybe even more corpses has some other effect, but it's basically going to have your corpse explosion consume basically all the corpses around the casting zone, I would assume. The scrolls describe a river of tar that separated the living from the land of the dead. Any unfortunate soul who tried to cross would be dragged down into oblivion. Then we have Ramaladni's Magnum Opus. Looks like it's a sword, one-handed, I would assume. Skills using this weapon deal 0.7 to 1% increased damage per point of fury you have, but you lose 2 fury every second. So this would be like a weapon specifically for a barbarian who is just like building primary resource like insanity. Maybe even somebody who is using a builder as his main skill could potentially be very interesting. Like if you had one of these on and then you were using a builder as your main ability, you would essentially get a pretty huge damage bump on that builder. And you could also go with things that would enhance the the number of fury that you have, like the maximum amount of fury. And if you got your fury high enough and you were using this weapon, perhaps with some other weapons, like I know there's one in particular that gives you a boost in damage for having full fury. And I think there's another one that's specifically for basic skills. And like, if you were to like stack it all together into a very nice setup, you could possibly put out some pretty extreme damage with just a basic skill. But it would have to be very, very augmented. Without him, the wine is less sweet, the hearth less warm, and our blades less keen. Our blood brother is gone, but Bulkathos willing, we will meet again one day. Sorrow Song for Ramaladni. Then we got Doombringer. This is an older one coming back. Doombringer is a unique from Diablo 2. And I can't remember if it was a unique from Diablo 1. I never found it myself, but could be. Lucky hit up to a 0.7% chance to deal expected level for eye power shadow damage to surrounded enemies and reduce their damage done by 20% for 3 seconds. So this is going to put a AoE effect on your attacks. And it seems rather low, though. 0.7% chance, and it's a lucky hit. So you got to understand that lucky hit doesn't really like give you exactly what you're looking for. So like if you have say like a global 33% lucky hit chance, and then this has a 0.7% chance to deal this explosion, like that's pretty terrible, to be honest, and it's probably going to very rarely ever go off, because 33% of the time you might get a lucky hit, so 66% of the time it's going to fail, and then 0.7% of 33% of the time it will succeed, which is not the greatest. I mean, the effect sounds nice. The shadow damage hitting all enemies around you and then doing 20% damage reduction to all enemies for 3 seconds. That sounds good. But it doesn't sound like it's actually going to go off enough to really be useful. But, you know, maybe once I have it in my hands, which I will eventually get one. I promise you, I will. I'm going to be farming my butt off for these items because I got to do videos on them. Whenever this ancient sword reappeared throughout history, it portends a time of great strife, as well as a devastating loss of life. It looks like this one also has an additional lucky hit In fact, I wasn't really paying attention, but it looks like some of these have little extra lucky hit doojanks on them. Or little effects that are more than just random stats. Like this is just like random stats. This is just random stats. This one right here, though, 2 to 4 ranks of shred with the waxing gibbous. This one, of course, comes with the crowd control damage, which I pointed out earlier. Nothing really too fancy there. This one has a increase in lucky hit chance. Nothing too fancy there. This one gives you 2 to 4 ranks of corpse explosion. +1 to fueled by death passive. That one's pretty good. That's the one that gives you essence for every monster that's exploded or a corpse that's exploded. Lucky hit has a 5% chance to restore your primary resource. So there you go. That one. That's for the one that builds the fury, the one that gives you extra damage for all the fury that you have. And then the Doombringer also had a special one here. It was up to a 5% chance to heal. And then we also get plus maximum life, which of course Doombringer always has plus maximum life. If you guys are unaware, it's something that is special to Doombringer. Flamscar. The special effects on this one is +2 to 4 ranks of Incinerate. While channeling Incinerate, you periodically shoot embers that are attracted to enemies, each dealing expected eye level power fire damage. Periodically. What is periodically? See, this is something you'd have to get in our hands and test it out, because periodically could mean anything. Could be like once every second, or once every 3 seconds, or once every 5 seconds. Like, and if it's not enough, if it's not fast enough, it might not even be worth using. Ancient's Oath. Steel Grasp launches 2 additional chains. Enemies hit by Steel Grasp are slowed by 55 to 65% for 3 seconds. Also 2 to 4 ranks of Steel Grasp there. And some interesting other effects like pretty good bleed additional damage, vulnerable damage, berserking skill damage. Seems to be specifically made for the Barbarian. Weapons wielded by the fiercest warriors often catch the eye of the ancient spirits. If the wielder is worthy, the spirits may bless the steel with their strength. Then we got the Skyhunter bow. Nice distant damage to enemies there. Marksman crit. 0.5 to 1 ranks of exploit passive. How do you get 0.5 of a rank to an exploit passive? How the hell do you get 0.5 of a skill? That's a little weird. Crit damage. Marksman dexterity. So the first direct hit you deal to an enemy is guaranteed to be a critical strike. If you had maximum stacks of the precision key passive when you cast the skill, gain 15 to 25 energy. This can only happen once per cast. So every time you touch a monster, the first time you touch them, in a dirty way, I'm just kidding. The first time you touch them, it's a guaranteed crit. That's actually very powerful, especially if you can build your character to do extremely high amounts of damage, because you could potentially kill them on the first hit if the crit is high enough. Ganai took up her bow and aimed at the sun itself. The light burned her eyes, but her arrow flew true. Wounded, the sun hid and brought forth the first night, the fable of the great sky hunt. Then we have good old Windforce coming back again. Windforce, we got 0.5 to 1 ranks of the Impetus passive. And then we have Lucky Hit. Hits with this weapon have up to a 10 to 20% chance to deal double damage and knock the target back. So going with the old standby there, you know, Windforce was always a high damage weapon, so the double damage is their way of making it into a high damage weapon. And then Windforce always had knockback attached to it as well, so very interesting. But Lucky Hit means that that 10 to 20% chance is a lot lower than it looks like, depending on what your Lucky Hit percentage is. So I guess we'll find out. Then there have been numerous world-shaping conflicts throughout history. This bow has been found on the battlefield of every one and always in the hands of the victors. Barrett's Book of Implements. Hellhammer, two-handed mace. This one seems to have 2 to 4 ranks of upheaval as its special ability. Also, damage with two-handed bludgeoning weapons added in there as well. So, upheaval ignites the ground, burning enemies for an additional expected level eye power damage for 3 seconds. So, it basically just turns upheaval into a DOT, or gives it a DOT basically, which isn't ever really a bad thing. Just adding additional damage types to your character. Now, the only reason that this would be bad is if the damage isn't really that great. So, I guess we'll find out. Overkill. Death Blow creates a shockwave, dealing 16 to 30% of its base damage to enemies. Enemies who die to this effect also reset Blow's cooldown, Death Blow's cooldown, and 2 to 4 ranks of Death Blow there. The malformed snake creature that lives in the swamps are not content with simply killing their prey. They seem to take malicious pleasure from inflicting as much suffering as possible before death. The Bloodless Scream, two-handed scythe. Your darkness skills will now chill enemies for up to 40%. Lucky hit, your darkness skills have up to a 100% chance to generate 2 to 5 additional essence against frozen targets. So this is a necromancer chill effect item. And you would probably pair this with, things like the ice mages and other such effects that will also add more chill to your damage types, because for every 40 or every time you get a monster to 100% chill, they are then frozen, and you would then generate 2 to 5 additional essence against frozen targets. So this is just basically a way that you can utilize the chill and freeze damage effects to gain huge amounts of damage and utility to your character. The Bloodless Scream, it seems like it's going to be a pretty powerful item for those specific builds. I can already see, and I've already seen, some very powerful chill and freezing builds, so it looks like it would be fun. My companion swung her odd weapon in a wide arc, and our pursuers stopped short. The look of horror on his face as his body fell to pieces will haunt me forever. The Eben Pages, Canto 2, verse 11. Greatstaff of the Crone. This one is Claw is now a Storm skill and also casts Storm Strike at 120 to 150% normal damage. It also gives 2 to 4 ranks to the Claw ability as well. She has existed in Scotland since before the Fialca Gear walked the land. Her purpose is a mystery to us all. However, approach her with deference. She may grant you her counsel. I read to Dawnin. That's kind of an interesting one because it basically makes Claw, which is I'm pretty sure a shapeshifter skill, into a storm skill for the storm, casters, and allows them to do some pretty crazy stuff. You are so stupid, Cody. He just crawled underneath the desk into a tiny little spot and curled up into a little ball and just you know what? Go sleep. Good boy. As long as he's not breaking nothing. As long as he's not breaking nothing. Staff of the Endless Rage. Every third cast of Fireball launches 2 additional projectiles. That sounds freaking ridiculously powerful. And of course it gives 2 to 4 ranks to Fireball itself. Leaving even blackened bones for your kin to mourn is too good an end for you, Josiah. Staff of Lam Esen. Lam Esen is a throwback to Diablo 2 because you have to find Lam Esen's tome. Lam Esen's tome is what you get to get the 5 stat points in Diablo 2. Charged bolts now pierce, but deal 30 to 40% less damage. That sounds pretty powerful. There's a couple different legendaries that I found along the way. Some that gave you more bolts that would come out. Some that had the bolts home in on targets and apparently last for a hell of a lot longer, like 500% longer or something. And I could potentially see this with those legendaries making a very powerful charged bolt sorceress. Also known as the Greatstaff of the Old Religion, this powerful relic is only a small handful of Scatsemi artifacts that have survived to this day. Barrett's Book of Implements. And of course, it gives +2 to 4 charge bolt as well. And some lightning damage. Fields of Crimson. This one is a two-handed sword. While using this weapon, damaging at least one enemy with Rupture, Rupture is the Barbarian skill, creates a blood pool that inflicts expected eye-level power bleeding damage over 6 seconds. Enemies standing in the pool take 0.18 to 0.34% increased bleeding damage. So basically, this is like something I would definitely want on my Bleedbarian. My Bleedbarian is all about bleeding, making everything bleed. Bleed, 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 bleed. And this is just another way that I can add more bleeding damage into my build, and why not? And also increase bleeding damage to all targets standing within the bleed. We've been fighting these flesh eaters for so long, been soaked in so much blood, that after a while it's difficult to tell what side you're truly on. Dalir Crane Tribe Warrior. Rupture, by the way, is not a bleed. Rupture is actually a ability that consumes all bleeds on the target and does additional damage for the total amount of bleed damage. So it, like, say I have, like 100,000 bleed damage, but it's going to take like 10 seconds for that 100,000 damage to tick. Rupture will consume all 10,000 damage, bump it up by a little bit to maybe around 12,000, and apply it directly to the target. So this could be very interesting for Bleedbarians because it allows Bleedbarians to have a more direct damage type. We have the Grandfather, which is also a returning a unique item from the past. This one increases your critical strike damage by 60 to 100%, so just a flat boof to your crit strikes. It could be very nice on some very specific builds. I built a couple high crit builds, like my Venom Wolf, which basically had like huge poison procs for every single time he crit, and this would be pretty sweet because the damage of the crit did in fact have to do with how much poison damage was applied to the target. The other properties on this weapon can roll higher than normal, so we got like crit strike damage, weapon damage, max life, all stats. Wow, 20 to 36 all stats. That's pretty nice. It's also indestructible. Ignores durability loss, and unbroken lineage of unwavering strength. Then we got some amulets. So we got the Battle Trance. Looks like it's got the standard resistance, but it's resistance to all elements, so that's pretty nice. 2 to 4 ranks of Frenzy. And nice basic skill damage. So this is one that beefs up Frenzy to probably turning it into a non-basic skill, basically. And remember what I said earlier about Ramaladni's Magnum Opus, about how it increased all damage basically for every point of fury you have? That would be a perfect weapon to use with this amulet, because that one gives you huge damage bumps for having max fury, and Frenzy is a builder, so Frenzy is going to continually build your fury. So you just constantly have max fury, you get all the modifiers that beef up your fury, and then you get this amulet, because it increases Frenzy's maximum stacks by 2 while you have maximum Frenzy. Your other skills gain 10 to 20% increased attack speed. So this is going to give us basically what we're looking for in terms of beefing up a basic skill to make that basic skill more powerful, and then using other items to allow that basic skill to dish out more damage. Could be interesting. Of course, it also increases attack speed for all other skills while you have maximum Frenzy stacks. And of course gives 2 to 4 Frenzy. The change that overtook my brother in battle was terrifying. His eyes turned hard like diamonds, and the way he moved, it was like he was dancing to music only he could hear. Captain Dervin. The Melted Heart of Selig. A nice all resistances there. Gain plus 100% maximum resource. In addition, when you take damage, drain 3 to 6 resource for every 1% life you would have lost instead. Huh. Melted Heart of Selig sounds like it would go good with that sword too. 100% maximum resource. Combine that with the the increased damage for every point of resource that you have up to a certain percentage. That could be extremely powerful. That could be extremely powerful for the Bone Spirit Necromancer too, because the Bone Spirit, when you fire it, does a huge amount of damage if you have full resource. But if you could have 200% your resource, then you could increase the damage that Bone Spirit does, like, dramatically. It also has increased generation of resource there. Do not allow your passions to become obsessions. Fuel the fire that burns within you. But it is madness to allow yourself to become ash to please an uncaring universe. Last words of Master Selig. Death Speaker's Pendant. They seem to all have all resistances on them. We have 1 to 2 ranks of Coalesced Blood passive. Blood Surge casts a mini nova on your minions, dealing expected eye level power damage. Damage is increased by 10% per target drained by the initial cast up to 50%. So Blood Surge is a Necromancer skill, and on your minions it sounds pretty damn cool, because if you got a full army, you'd have a little mini nova on every single minion, which is a lot of minions, especially if you go for minions specifically. This could be a very interesting way for you to build a Blood Summon Necromancer. Once a sanctum for Rathma studies, the Temple of the Death Speaker became a proving grounds for the potential leaders of his priesthood. Its halls are filled with the corpses of those who failed. Word of Hakan. Your rain of arrows is always imbued with all imbuements at once. Now this is like ridiculously powerful. I played around with the imbuements on the rogue. The shadow imbuement is very powerful. I think it was the most powerful of them. But the poison and the ice were also very powerful. And having rain of arrows be imbued with all three? Ooh, man. That is some pretty insane stuff there. Let the great gates of Chaldeum be sealed. Let its proud walls stand fiercely defended. The rest of Kyrgyzstan may suffer this plague, but my city and my people will not. Skill rank bonus rogue category imbuements, of course. Ultimate skill damage, critical strike damage with imbued skills, non-physical damage, of course, because it's non-physical damage. Seems like this is going to really beef up your Rain of Arrows. So if you were doing a Rain of Arrows build on the rogue, that could definitely be an interesting choice. Isadora's Overflowing Cameo. Resistance to all elements, of course. Upon collecting Crackling Energy, oh, my Crackling Energy build, there's a 10% chance to release a Lightning Nova, dealing expected eye level damage, lightning damage. Boy, I had a whole freaking Crackling Energy build too, and I couldn't get any of this cool stuff. But I might be back, boys. Ranks of the Shocking Impact passive. Damage, Crackling Energy, non-physical damage. Yeah, this would be like really good for my Crackling Energy build. The only thing more potent than Isadora's magic was her endless hatred of humanity. As she lay dying, the pale amulet around her neck drank in both. 100,000 steps. Boots. We got attacks reduce evades cooldown. After gaining the final damage bonus from the Walking Arsenal key passive, so this is Barbarian, you automatically cast Ground Stomp and gain 32 to 50 Fury. This cannot happen more than once every 30 seconds. So basically, just automatic Fury generation from these boots, which is interesting. Gives you 2 to 4 ranks of Ground Stomp as well. Penitent Greaves boots. You leave behind a trail of frost that chills enemies. You deal 7 to 10% more damage to chilled enemies. So this would be a very interesting addition to a chill or freeze build, so that everything is nice and chilled or nice and frozen. Remorseful devotees of the Cathedral of Light must undertake a grueling pilgrimage, journeying across the frigid glacier known as the Sarek Rapture. Only then may their gravest sins be forgiven. So this one is actually a generic one. Doesn't seem to be specifically for any class, which is unique, because a lot of these that I've been looking at seem to be very specifically pointed at very specific characters. And these are definitely not pointed at a very specific character. Greaves of the Empty Tomb. +2 max evade charges. Creates desecrated ground beneath your sever. Specters as they travel. Damaging enemies for expected power. Shadow damage over 2 seconds. So another way to add like a little damage over time doojank underneath of people. It says desecrated ground and it's shadow damage. Damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time enemies. Essence cost reduction. Luck shadow. What the hell does that mean? The massive door to my family's crypt, which had taken a dozen men to close, was thrown open. Had I known the horrors to come, I never would have set foot inside. The Ebon Pages, Canto 1, Verse 7. Asu's Heirloom. Boots. Your critical strike chance is increased by 15 to 25% of your movement speed bonus. Okay. So, stacking a bunch of movement speed gives you a bunch of crit. That sounds really freaking nice. I think there's quite a few builds that could take advantage of that. While scholars have proven these boots were not created by Esu herself, it is noteworthy that they have been passed down since the formation of the mage clans. Barrett's Book of Implements. Rage of Heragroth. Let me guess, a barbarian item. Lucky hit up to a 20 to 40% chance to reduce the cooldowns of your non-ultimate skills by 1.5 seconds when you inflict bleeding on elites. So only elites. I'm trying to think of my barbarian and my bleed barbarian and like how effective that would actually be. And like I'm getting the feeling that it would not be that effective. It would not be that amazing. I mean, for the most part, when I was using my Bleed Barbarian and doing as many bleeds as I possibly could, the only cooldowns I really had were Iron Maelstrom, which isn't really that effective against the bosses anyway, and Iron Skin, which is my defensive cooldown. I mean, it would potentially give me more defensive cooldown, but I don't know, I'd have to do a little bit more thinking about that one. But as a barbarian who actually played Bleed build, I don't know if that would actually be all that useful. Mad Wolf's Glee. Werewolf form is now your true form, and you gain +2 ranks to all werewolf skills. So this is something that I think Dobrunsky even posted on Twitter, and there's 2 of them. So one of them is Werewolf, and one of them is Werebear. So these are pretty cool, though, because they basically make it so that you can make Werewolf or Werebear your main form, and also gives you a nice little bump in ranks as well. So this is something that's going to be very, very interesting to build your character around. I know my nephew is probably going to absolutely want this one because he loves Werebear, and he would absolutely want Werebear to be his true form. It looks like, other than the aforementioned unique effect, they get physical damage, poison damage, damage reduction from poisoned enemies, movement speed. He was not a victim of the curse. He sought it out. As his skin split and his bones cracked, his laughter never ceased. Tale of the Mad Nobleman. And then the Werebear one is Insatiable Fury. Werebear form is now your true form, and you gain +2 ranks to all Werebear skills. Physical damage, overpower damage, damage reduction while fortified, and armor. So definitely set up to be more tanky than the werewolf version. When the days of Ash began, the great druid Nafane reminded his disciples that nothing, not even the loss of their humanity, was too great a sacrifice to protect Turdulra from Astaroth's flames. Astaroth is a demon that I'm pretty sure we're going to be fighting in Diablo 4, by the way. Razor Plate. Chest armor. Gain expected eye level thorns. That's it. Nothing else. Crafted by the cannibal Armoda, each piece of this interlocking armor has been sharpened into a knife's edge. Even a century after death, the plate remained on her corpse, unable to be removed safely. So it's basically just huge amounts of thorns that you can gain for a thorns build. Nothing else on it, though. Blood Artisan's Curios. When you pick up 5 to 10 blood orbs, a free bone spirit is spawned, dealing bonus damage based on your current life percentage, which should always be full as you're picking up orbs that heal you. Gives you 2 to 4 ranks of bone spirit. The infamous necromancer Gaza Thul's mastery over blood magic was indisputable. Many suspect that upon his death, his skin was used to fashion this eldritch armor. Raiment of the Infinite. After using teleport, so this is a sorceress item, close enemies are pulled to you and stunned for 2 to 3 seconds, but teleport's cooldown is increased by 20%. So this sounds like it'd be a really good one for like a Frost Nova sorceress. You teleport in, everything gets sucked to you, you Frost Nova, you hit everything with your Frost Nova, which doesn't really have that big of a radius, but you'd be able to hit everything if it's going to pull everything into you. And it also gives you some nice little like damage bonuses to close enemies, damage bonuses to stunned enemies, and +1 ranks to the glass cannon passive. Goer's Devastating Grips. I like the flavor text on that. The power you have is never enough. So Goer's Devastating Grips. Whirlwind explodes after it ends, dealing 50 to 75% of the total base damage dealt to surrounding enemies as fire damage. We get nice attack speed, lucky hit chance, fury on kill bonus, and 2 to 4 ranks of Whirlwind. This brutish construction of these gloves belies the strength they bestow. Goer was clearly no craftsman, but it would be foolish to ignore the triumph of his work. Barrett's Book of Implements. Fists of Fate. Gloves. Your attacks randomly deal 1% to 200 to 300% of their normal damage. Wow, okay. Just a huge damage bump, randomly. Random damage bump. Lucky hit, up to 5% chance to heal. Lucky hit, up to 5% chance to restore primary resource. Lucky hit chance with immobilized damage. Lucky hit chance with dazing damage. Seems to be a very, like, yeah, Fists of Fate. It's literally like leaving your hands up to, like, random chance. Will you let the fear cheat you, or will you risk everything to find understanding? After all, death is simply the coin with which we purchase life. Another returning item, Frost Burns. Lucky hit, up to a 12 to 15 to 25% chance to freeze enemies for 2 seconds, so basically just free freezes, depending on whether you can get the lucky hit. We also have freeze duration % increase, damage to cold, or cold damage added directly, critical strike chance, lucky hit up to a 5% chance to restore primary resource. I mean, it's a pretty small chance, but even the 5% chance, it's lower than 5% because it's a lucky hit. So if you got like a 50% lucky hit, then it's a 50% chance to get a 5% chance, which is a hell of a lot lower than 5%. But it seems to be restoring a pretty hefty amount, 14 to 28. Frostburn flavor text is a touch so frigid it stops the heart and chills the very soul. Then we have Howl Below, another pair of gloves. Instead of detonating immediately, Corpse Explosion summons a volatile skeleton that charges at a random enemy and explodes. The corpse explosion damage is increased by 30 to 40%. So basically all this really does when you think about it is it just turns your Corpse Explosion into a homing Corpse Explosion. So not exactly like that crazy, but it just allows you to use corpses off to the side. So like if you have like a corpse like way off on the side of the boss or something like that, you can Corpse Explode that corpse, the skeleton will run over and blow up on the target. But for the most part, it doesn't really seem like it increases the damage all that much. It just allows you to use corpses that might not necessarily be within the range of the monster. 7 to 14% lucky hit chance, attack speed _ corpse. The hell is that? Lucky hit chance with stun damage and lucky hit chance with fear damage. Can you not hear it? That endless scream from the cold earth beneath your feet. They are down there trapped, blind with rage, waiting to drag us down into the sod. Ravings of Madman Gustav. Grasp of Shadow. Lucky hit damaging a vulnerable enemy with a marksman or cutthroat skill has up to a 20 to 30% chance to summon a shadow clone that mimics your attack. So this is basically just free shadow clones. Shadow clones are essentially just like double damage. They just do the same skill that you do. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do the same skill you do in the same direction or at the same target. I often tried to get shadow clones, my shadow clones, when I was using it, to do what I was doing, how I was doing it, and a lot of the times they would just be firing their shot off into nowhere. It was a little strange. But, I mean, if you got them constantly spawning, they're going to be doing something, and they're going to be useful. They just won't be as useful, probably, as they should be. Dark wisps creep hungrily across these gloves like an assassin's blade seeking a life to steal on a moonless night. Trying to see if there's anything special on here. It says damage shadow clone, a skill rank bonus, generic category core. So you get a nice bonus to core skills. Gloves of the Illuminator. Fireball now bounces as it travels, exploding each time it hits the ground, but its explosion deals 65 to 75% less damage. Huh. So it goes boing, 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 boing. I guess. That sounds weird. We'll have to play around with that. Critical strike chance, fireball attack speed, lucky hit chance with stun damage, and of course 2 to 4 ranks of fireball. After Inarius returned to Sanctuary, he sought a way back to the high heavens. His first step was to reignite the religion he had abandoned millennia before, the Cathedral of Light. See, I was curious about that. So the Cathedral of Light did cease to exist, and Inarius, when he got back, literally remade the religion. Tempest Roar. Lucky hit. Storm skills have up to a 15 to 25% chance to grant 10 spirit. Your base storm skills are now also werewolf skills. Okay. So you can be a storm wolf, which is pretty cool, because I did that in Diablo 2, and that was pretty fun. Looks like it gives some pretty generic stuff. Damage while shapeshifting, poison resistance, maximum shadow, life on kill. Listen, child, to the music of the storm. It has its own rhythm, its own melody. Hear how beautifully it sings, and perhaps one day you will be able to join in its harmony. Arida. Vassally's Prayer. Your earth skills are now also werebear skills and fortify you for an expected eye level power. Damage while shapeshifted, lightning resistance, maximum life, spirit on kill. Roots from the great oak growing at the seaward statue of Vassally will, on rare occasions, be found twisted back up upon themselves, suffused with ferocious magic. Barrett's Book of Implements. So this sounds really powerful, because basically you can just be a werebear, just putting out like some pretty crazy earth skills, and there are some really good earth skills. I was very impressed with quite a few of the earth skills that were in the tree, and being able to use them as a bear. Quite a few of them struck me very much so as melee skills, like Landslide, for instance, which, like kind of just like hits everything in front of you with this nice little AoE pattern. And as a werebear, if you're running along and you use that skill, especially if you have some of the buffs for it, it could do some pretty intense damage. And there's more, obviously, but some pretty nice werebear skills that could be some earth skills that become werebear skills. Next is another returning one, Andariel's Visage. Lucky hit, up to a 10 to 20% chance to trigger a Poison Nova. Poison Nova's back, boys. That applies I'm sure that's not 0, poisoning damage over 5 seconds to enemies in the area. It's probably scales with your level. Gives 10 to 18 all stats, 4 to 10% increased attack speed, 1.6 to 3% lifesteal, and poison resistance. The horrific whispers of the Maiden of Anguish flicker through your mind, pushing you even closer to madness. Harlequin Crest. Shaco. That's right, boys. The Shaco. Gain random, I'm pretty sure that's intelligence, 5 times 10, 8 times 10, or damage reduction. Okay, so we got the DR on there. In addition, grant 10 plus 2 to all skills. So we got the DR, and we also got the plus 2 to all skills, just like the Shaco has. And then bonus to maximum life, cooldown reduction, gold drop rate, and all stats. I'm guessing since there's no magic find, or it doesn't seem to be any magic find in Diablo 4, we basically they just gave us gold drop rate instead. This headdress was once worn by an assassin disguised as a court mage. Her treachery was unveiled, but not before she used its magic to curse the king's entire lineage. The Fall of House Aston. Deathless Visage Helm. Bone Spear leaves behind echoes as it travels that explode, dealing expected eye-level power damage. Armor, physical damage, critical strike damage, maximum damage over time. I've never seen that one before. Plus 16 to 24 maximum damage over time. Rathma is endless. He was the first ancient and will remain at the end. He is the master of the great cycle of being. When death comes for him, why should he fear it? Vontus, Acolyte of Rathma. Cowl of the Nameless Helm. You gain 15 to 25% increased lucky hit chance against crowd-controlled enemies. 28 to 42 dexterity. I mean, this could be very interesting in combination with any kind of crowd control build, just simply because there's definitely a lot of items that have crowd control lucky hit stuff, or lucky hit chances, and they're not exactly the greatest, but if you could increase your lucky hit chance by 25% against any enemy that's crowd controlled, you could potentially utilize lucky hit items a hell of a lot more frequently. It says maximum cold. That is. He is banished from the guild, his name stricken from the book. His punishment is to never have been. Excerpt from the burned parchment. Purified sigil. Grand cache requires level 40. The nightmare has been purged. Activate this sigil to reveal a host of valuable items. We got some pants. We got the panty pants. Storm's Companion. While injured, your potion also grants 30% movement speed for 2 seconds. Your wolf companions are infused with the power of the storm. Oh, wow. Dealing lightning damage and gaining the Storm Howl ability. So basically, this is a buff up for the companion druid. I'm actually pretty interested to see how that turns out, whether or not the companion druid could be really interesting. I've seen some really cool companion druid items, though. One that even turned your wolves into werewolves, which was pretty cool. So we'll have to see. And this gives 2 to 4 ranks to wolves, so that's pretty damn cool. And also companion movement speed and companion skill damage. I mean, very, very good companion item. The Storm's Rage is my own brother, I call, and the skies roar in reply. Vasily to Volcathos. Temerity Pants. We have effects that heal you beyond 100% life, grant you a barrier up to random amount of your maximum life that lasts for 30 seconds. That seems really powerful and very generic. 2 to 3 potion charges added. Potion drop rate increased by 12 to 26%. Lucky hit up to 5% chance to heal life. 7 to 14% increased healing received. So, pretty interesting defensive pants. Like, just in general, like, I mean, number one, they give you a barrier. Every time you're healed, there's 100%. Effects that heal you beyond 100% life grant you a barrier. So if you're constantly at full life, you're getting barriers. The barrier lasts for 30% or 30 seconds and is a certain percentage of your maximum life. And then you've got increased potion charges, potion drop rate, healing received bonuses, and then chances to heal yourself here. I mean, just like very defensive pants. Very defensive pants. Eyes in the Dark, another pair of pants. I don't know if I want eyes on my pants, but okay. Unless it hits a boss or a player, Death Trap will continue to rearm itself until it kills an enemy. However, Death Trap's cooldown is now increased by 15 to 30%. So basically, Death Trap will just continually re-up itself unless it hits a boss or a player. I wonder if that also includes elites. If it doesn't include elites, then that's actually really powerful. So we got increased dodge chance, shadow damage, damage to elites, and damage to trap enemies. And so when the sun dipped behind the hills each night, he knew that Ashan Jack would soon be near, watching and waiting. Greenslade's Tales, Chapter 2, Each Long Night. Next is Iceheart Brais. Enemies that die while frozen have a 11 to 20% chance to unleash a Frost Nova. Oh wow, that seems really freaking powerful. Not just for the sorceress either. Like any freezing build could potentially get some really nice use out of that, unless they are restricted directly to the sorceress. It gives intelligence, damage to frozen enemies, damage to injured enemies, and increased freeze duration. The mad artisan saw his fingers turn black from frostbite as he worked the cloth, but he refused to stay the needle and thread for even a moment. Hunter's Zenith Ring. Gain a bonus when you kill with a shape-shifting skill. Werewolf, your next non-ultimate werebear skill costs no resource and has no cooldown. Werebear, your next werewolf skill will heal you for expected power level when damage is first dealt. So this is a ring specifically for the ones that are going to be shape-shifting back and forth between their two different forms. Damage while shapeshifted, critical strike damage, overpower damage, +1 ranks of the quick shift passive. By fang, claw, spear, or sword, send the bastards back to the flames from which they crawled. Soak the peat with their blood for Fiacala Gier for Skazgland. Nafan during the days of Ash. Mother's Embrace, another ring. If a core skill hits 5 or more enemies, 20 to 40% of the resource cost is refunded. Fire resistance, cold resistance, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, overpower damage, and core skill damage. Seems like it's something specifically for characters that want to do lots of AoE damage and lots of damage in general. It doesn't seem to be like specifically pointed at any class, but you need your core skill to hit 5 or more enemies, which may restrict this to characters that can actually achieve that. Because if you can't hit 5 or more enemies, then it's not going to refund your resource. I know, for instance, my Barbarian, my Bleed Barbarian, could definitely have used that because he was using... was it Rend? I believe it was Rend, which could hit 5 or more enemies in front of me, depending on how I had myself positioned. So that could be very powerful, so I could just spam Rend over and over again. Every tome, every scroll, every book in this temple produces the same answer. The only being willing to stand against the eternal conflict against the primevals was Lilith. Ring of the Starless Skies. Lightning resistance, shadow resistance. Each consecutive core skill cast reduces the resource cost of your next core skill by 5 to 10%, up to a maximum of 30%. So this would be something that you would definitely use if you were trying to basically eliminate the basic skills from your character and just simply cast your core skills over and over and over again. Because this would essentially give you the ability to spam core skills by reducing their cost. And then if you mitigated the rest of the cost in other ways by having maybe the core skill generate some of its own, resource, you could potentially make a core skill that could be cast indefinitely. Of course, it also gives core skill damage, damage to crowd-controlled enemies, lucky hit, all stats. Yours is the power to pluck the stars from the heavens with the ease of a child gathering fruit from the bough. Unknown. Next is the Ring of the Mendeln. Cold resistance, shadow resistance. While you have 7 or more minions, you gain lucky hit up to a 10% chance to empower all of your minions, causing the next attack from each to explode for expected power level physical damage. That's interesting. A percentage seems a little low, but it also gives you lucky hit chance increase of 4 to 10%, and minion attack speed of 7 to 14%, and minion life of 17.5 to 31.5%, and some thorns to boot. The Signet of Mendeln, Ul Dio Med, the founder of the Priests of Rathma and the first necromancer, was lost for over 3,000 years. The immense power over death held within, however, has not diminished. Sounds like a very powerful one specifically for Minion Mancers. Then we have the Ring of Misfortune. This is the last one on the list, and it seems to be a cursed ring. It says +6 strength, +6 intelligence, +6 willpower, and +6 dexterity. Lucky hit up to a 100% chance to lose all of your resource. Requires level 1. A seemingly ordinary ring, but wearing it fills you with dread. Is this the first cursed item of Diablo 4? That sounds very interesting. So, that's all of them. It took us, what was it, about 50 minutes, almost an hour to go over all of these. I'll try and put some chapters in for you guys so that it's not so ridiculous if you want to look up a particular item. And, as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.